Hello, welcome back to my channel. We still have a weird light. Come on, lamp. First off, because everyone seemed really concerned in all my old videos that I only drink Diet Coke, I'm drinking this disgusting looking green smoothie today, so my health is fine, I promise. I posed this question on Instagram and on Facebook before I made this video, so these are real concerns from y'all, but I asked people if they had any like rumors that they heard or like concerns they had about doing a Disney program or the Disney college program or working for Disney in general. So today I'm going to sit down and debunk or confirm some rumors about working for Disney or doing a Disney program. Like I said, I took all these from Facebook and Instagram, so if you want to be a part of these when I do Q&As and things like that, follow me on Instagram. That's the easiest place to find me. I always put things up there. Sometimes I'll put things on Twitter too, but Instagram is usually my number one, and it's the easiest to get a whole bunch of replies from people. I do polls all the time on Instagram too, so follow me on Instagram if you want to be a part of things like this. Hey buddy, do you want to be in the video? Well, now we just have cat shadows on top of my face. I wrote down a few ones here, so I'm just going to go through these and kind of say my experience with them and like debunk them, or maybe they're right and maybe it's terrible, and we're going to confirm it here. So the first one, which is a big one that I got, is people are worried about roommates. And I think this happens because when you look up Disney College Program, a lot of the videos that are really popular and posted are really popular are roommate horror stories and guest horror stories and getting yelled at working at Disney and all those like crazy dramatic videos, which I think we all know aren't necessarily entirely true. I think people know when they make those videos they're making them dramatic because they know people are going to watch them because they're dramatic, so they are, you know, dramatic stories. So I think when you watch those videos, take them with a little bit of a grain of salt because maybe they're not the most truthful things in the whole entire world. People have been called out on this before. It's not new or surprising, but I think people are worried about having bad roommates, especially the more that Disney cuts down linking and the more that Disney just like makes people go random or does smaller linking groups. People get more and more nervous about roommates. I have done 2 programs. I have had entirely different sets of roommates by 2 programs, and I've been a Vista 6 person both times. So I've collectively had 2 apartments. In my first apartment, we all had the same move-in and move-out day, so it was the same 6 of us. So I had 5 roommates the whole time. Then in my second program, we had like 2 American roommates who I love, who moved out. We had a Canadian who self-term, and then we had a roommate from Norway, Japan, and Germany all move in. So I had a whole bunch of roommates in my last program. I technically linked with 0 people on my first program, and I only linked with 1 person on my second program. And I think I got pretty lucky. Honestly, roommates aren't that bad. Like I said, I think people are really dramatic about it a lot of the time because they know it's gonna get views, but they aren't necessarily how they would describe it in like the real world. I think if your friend asked you for advice about roommates working for Disney, you wouldn't go off on like a huge big rant about your like evil roommate the same way you would in front of a camera, but that's just my personal opinion. I just realized my nose ring isn't in. Come back. Okay, she's back now. I think that's number 1. People online are being dramatic. Number 2 is the people online are such a teeny tiny little portion of people. If you think about your program, like the international programs, they have like 200 to 300 applicants or people accepted. The Disney College program, there's like thousands of people. So if one person on their program makes a video about their terrible roommate, think that there's like 5,000 other people that have had no problems with their roommates. So, ma'am, your tail is knocking over things. Can it get bad? Yes. Do I think that a lot of people who do the Disney College program are people that have never lived outside their parents' basement? Yes. Because of this, do I think they don't know how to do things like dishes and laundry and keep an area clean and respect hours that people want to be sleeping and know when it's inappropriate to have house guests over? Yes. There obviously is stories of people that have roommates that like move their significant other in or are always partying and always drinking, and it happens, but I don't think it's as common as people think it is. My camera is gonna die, so I'm gonna go charge it and then I'll be back. Okie dokie, we're back. The next few are about like applications and interviews specifically, that's the right word. The first thing is people said they've heard it is really hard to get in, and kind of yes, kind of no. I think this depends. Yes, statistically it is hard to get in, especially compared to things like I feel like university, which is like already kind of hard to get in, but I didn't even think about it. I just knew I would get it. Does that sound bad? I don't know. I think like statistically, yes, numbers wise, it is hard to get into when you think of how many people apply, then how many people accept it, especially if you want a role that is a little bit harder to get. Hi friend, do you want to come say hi to the video? Hi, meow meow. hello to all your fans. They missed you. Say hi to them. It is hard to get into when you think about it like that, numbers wise, especially if you want something like performer or attendant or a harder role to get. Not the easiest. Related to that, people say it is unlikely to get an interview if you're in your first year of university, and that's why I don't necessarily believe. A lot of people do the program really young. It happens. I can't relate because I am very old. Oh, now we have a big old shadow from my cat's body. Hey bud, can you go over here? Over here. Thank you. I do think it helps to have at least 2 years of university on your belt. I don't think you can apply for any of them unless you've completed your first year of university. Obviously, you can't just do like half a semester. But I do think it helps to have that, only because it's helpful to have like life experience in general. So I'm not saying that you need to be like a really old student to get in, and people do get in right away. I just think it is helpful because you're more comfortable writing resumes and cover letters and interviewing and things like that if you've already been in school for a little bit. The last one that's interview related is people said that they've heard the interviewers are rude, and I've never experienced this. I did have the same person actually do my in-person interview and my phone interview for my 2 programs. But I had Sue. She doesn't do Canon anymore. She still does a lot of the international programs though. She's super sweet, so I had no problems. Last year everyone loved the interviewer that assisted her. We had, I want to say her name was Kiki. She worked for the Canadian Pavilion as my in-person interview in 2018, and she was really sweet too, so I've never had a problem with it. I think for the DCP, because it's only phone interviews, it's a little bit different, and they're clearly on a tight schedule and they're trying to go really quick and they're trying to fill spots the most like efficient way possible, so I think they can sometimes come off as rude because they're just moving so quickly. But I don't think any of the interviewers mean to be rude, and I've never had a problem with any of them. I'm going to talk about people and then complexes and then the job, and then I'll be done. A lot of people were concerned about meeting people and making friends and things like that, and I think you get as much out of it as you put into it. So my first program, I didn't really talk to anyone besides the like few people that I worked with. I still talked to like Brittany and Courtney, who I worked with at Typhoon, but I didn't like go out and make friends with anyone else besides like my roommates really. I didn't go to any housing events. I didn't really talk to any other Canadians. I didn't talk to like anyone else. I only stayed in my little bubble, and I think I only made friends with those people because I didn't put any effort in. Whereas this program, I picked up more locations. I have a lot more friends in entertainment just because I would talk to people in break rooms and like befriend people and ask questions about them. And you'd think that it'd be harder in entertainment to make friends because you're all over the place and you don't have like a set home location. But I found it a lot easier, especially because you're so all over the place. If you work with someone more than once or twice, you really got to know them and the way that they worked, and they know the way that you worked, and it was like a really good dynamic, I feel like. So I made more friends in entertainment even though I worked with those people less, if that makes sense. I also made friends with more Canadians. I didn't talk to like any of the French Canadians in my first program besides the 2 that I lived with, where this year I was really good friends with a lot of French Canadians. This is because one of them I worked with all the time. He was a performer who I love, but I feel like I just reached out and made more friends with different groups this year than I did in the past. I think you can try to make friends beforehand. I joined like the Facebook groups for the DCP that overlapped, so the spring group and the fall advantage group. I joined those to make friends. Even though it's not necessarily your program, you can join them to meet people. You can look up hashtags on like Twitter and Instagram. It's easy to find people, I feel like, that fall, especially in your little faculty. Like my friend Trey, who is a performer. I talked to Trey before either of our programs started because we found each other on a Facebook group, and he got performer and he was in Magic Kingdom and I got attendant and I was in Magic Kingdom, so we knew we were probably gonna run into each other. Going to any sort of like events that you can, talking to people beforehand, being active on like the Facebook group, social media, stuff like that, putting your name out there is a really easy way to do that and make more friends, and always be down to say yes. Like there's some girls in the Canadian program that I had never hung out with, and then I literally ran into them in DAC one day. I was gonna go see Rivers of Light by myself and they were like, oh, do you want to sit with us? And I was like, okay. And they're like, oh, we're gonna go get like edible cookie dough from one of the like value resorts because we worked there and we saw it and it's new. And I was like, okay. So just being down to do things and say yes makes it way easier to make friends. I literally can't see, it's so bright. I've now moved the angle 3 times in this video, so we're doing good. Now talking about the housing complexes, I have a whole video that I'll link up there about the pros and cons of the housing complexes and which one I prefer. It is no surprise that I love Vista. I lived in Vista. Vista's my home. I would absolutely go back to Vista. I love it. But it does have a bad reputation, which I address in that video too. Vista is kind of known as the party complex, and I think this came from the old days. I know people that lived in Vista in like the early mid 2000s, and it kind of was a party complex back then. Now the complexes are kind of like boring. I don't think any of them are more exciting than others. The most parties that I went to honestly was probably in Patterson, which has a like reputation of being the old people complex. So I think it depends on the people that live there from program to program. There's no way of specifically knowing. Is Vista older? Yes. Is Vista more run down? Yes. Is Vista also cheaper? Yeah. Does it also have the best buses? Yeah. Every complex has its pros and cons, and I do think they do kind of have those reputations of like Vista being the party complex and Patterson as being like the old people complex and Commons as being like the rich people complex. And I think to an extent, like, I see how that happens because if people are spending less money on rent and living in older buildings, maybe they're spending more money on things like alcohol. But that wasn't necessarily my experience with it. I think you're gonna get like good and bad people no matter what complex you live in. And the last two things that people are worried about are directly related to the job. The first one is one that you hear a lot, and is that you get crazy hours and you're super run down and it's insane work. This one is hard because kind of yes, kind of no. The hours I feel like are 50-50. Some people get an insane amount of hours, they want to die, they feel like they can't function, it's the worst. And other people get the minimum of like 28, 30 and they feel like they can't live and they don't have enough money to do anything. And I feel like there's not a lot of in between. I got really lucky on my first program. I regularly worked between like 48 and 50 hours and it was a lot of the same shifts, which was really nice. And then my second program in the summer, I pretty regularly got scheduled 30 to 35 hours, and then I would always switch to be closer to 40 to 45 hours. So if you're worried about hours, you can always join those Facebook groups that are shift exchange groups and put them forward. A lot of people trade them, especially in globally trained roles like merch and character attendant and things like that. It's a lot easier to do. But the chances are if you're someone who doesn't get a lot of hours, there's someone out there who's getting a crap ton of hours and wants to get rid of them. And if you're someone that has a ton of hours and you feel super worn out, there's someone out there who's getting the minimum hours and they're happy to swap shorter shifts with you. So like I said, it's not always the case. Do you sometimes get scheduled 60 hours a week? Yeah. Do you sometimes get scheduled a 14-hour shift, you know, 3 days in a row? Yeah. But the upside of that is that Disney doesn't pay that well, so I would really utilize my overtime. I feel like I talk about this in another video, I don't remember which one though. I would try to pick up at least 2 or 3 like 10.5-hour spare shifts, a thoughtful spa shift, a contemporary dinner shift, something like that that's way over the 8-hour mark. So that way I was working less, I felt like, because it was already an hour commute to and from Magic Kingdom. So I was already there, so it's 2 hours more working there. So I felt like I wasn't working as much because I wasn't picking up an extra day, but I was making more money because I was doing overtime. Yes, you do work crazy hours. That is kind of true. And the last one is people worrying that working for the company will ruin the magic. This is kind of true, I'm not gonna lie to you. But again, like a lot of things, it works like in both ways. I did see things that I didn't think I was going to see. Especially not being in entertainment and then being in entertainment, I was kind of like, this is what I signed up for, I guess. In the sense of that, yes, it does ruin the magic, and I think a lot of people in food get this too, where they see like how much food is thrown out and like how dirty things can be and how like poorly people can be treated sometimes and like how terrible guests are. I think that can ruin the magic really easily. But at the same time, it gave me a whole new appreciation, especially coming from, I've said this before, but coming from entertainment. I now see how much work goes into all the meet and greets and all the shows and all the parades and things like that. And I was never a character person, I was never a parade person, I was never a show person, and now I'm obsessed with them. Because I see how much people put into it and how much work it takes and how passionate people are, and now I totally get it and it's like a bajillion times more magical for me. But I can see how someone who works in like, you know, quick service food or merchandise, who sees things like thrown out all the time and constantly have guests yelling at them and like get written up for like teeny tiny little things, I can see how they find that it ruins the magic a little bit for them. Yeah, that's it. That's all. I feel like I've been talking for 800 years now. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please subscribe. I upload a whole bunch. I'm gonna have a bunch more Disney stuff coming as interviews kind of roll out too. By the time that this video is up, they've maybe given interview offers for new people, I don't know yet. But I have a bunch of Disney stuff coming up, a bunch of like little vloggy things coming up too, so feel free to subscribe for that. Like I said, if you want to be part of things like this, look at the links down below. I ask these things on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that more than I even ask them on YouTube. I also am utilizing the community page more though, so if you see me on your feed, feel free to vote in polls and stuff like that, because I do post things there too. But that is it. That is all. I'll see you guys in a couple of days. Bye.